How's it going, guys? So in today's tutorial, we're going to be learning how to make this simple forest tree animation. No external assets needed. Everything in this tutorial is done inside of Blender. So that's really cool about this one. And the project file, if you'd like to get your hands on it, it's in the description for $1. Everybody on Patreon, you'll be getting that on all 3 tiers. If you don't know about the Patreon, there's tons of cool stuff on it. I just released a tutorial on how I use foam to be able to use it real time in Blender and Eevee. I have a lot of other things, like I released 10 new procedural materials. That's part of a really big pack, so that's a sample pack for that. And a bunch of other cool stuff is happening on the Patreon. You can go check that out in the description. But let's get into the tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and get a new file going here, and I'm just delete everything out of your scene. I'm going to hit Shift A and then get in a plane here, and I'm going to hit S8 and then Control A and apply scale. That's super important to apply your scale. Now what I'm going to do is get in a new add-on. So we'll go to Edit, Preferences, and in the add-ons you're going to type in Tree. You want to use the this add-on right here, Add Curve Tree Generator. So to click the little check mark on that, and then Shift A, you'll go here to Curves right here, Tree Generation, and we have that right there. You can bring up this dialog and load preset, and I'm going to get, I think the, let's see what we have here. Japanese maple is what I used for this animation. Now let's get ourselves some leaves. So click up here where it says Geometry and go here to Leaves, click Show Leaves, and then on leaf scale, just bring it up to whatever you think is appropriate for this tree here. And now we have our tree. And by default, the leaves are parented to the tree. So that's really great, but they are separate geometry. So we're going to go ahead and just shrink him down, something like this, and then move him over. And then go again and get in. And I'm going to get 3 different trees. So I'm going to go back to Geometry, Load, Japanese Maple, and then right here on Random Seed, click that just to get some differences, and then back here to Leaves. So I'm going to do that one more time on a new tree. You can go ahead and add as few or many trees as you'd like for this part of the tutorial. Alright, so now we have our trees. We're not going to worry about shading them right now because they're practically going to be silhouettes in this design, so shading is far from a priority in this tutorial. So next up is to duplicate them around your square. This is going to be a looping animation, so make sure that when you are arranging your trees to be around the area, that they stay within this 8x8 square. That's extremely important that they stay within the square. So what you would want to do is just select both things here, Shift D, and move it around, and just randomly select different ones. And then when you're finished with selecting one, if you want some differentiation, which is very important to have it look different even though they're duplicated, just rotate them both around. So you'll select the tree base and just rotate it like that. And so we'll go in, and I'm going to go ahead and move these trees around, duplicate them, and make a forest. Alright, so I have the trees positioned out as I like. Now this is the direct center, and I don't want any trees in the middle there, so I'm just going to move that away. So I'm going to hit the tilde key right above the tab on my keyboard for me and hit front. I'm going to hit Shift A and add in my camera. And then I'm going to move him back on the y-axis to -8. That brings him to the very edge of my 8x8 square. And I'm going to bring him up, hit 0 to go to my camera view. And then I'm going to move this tree a little bit over here, and then move these away. So, I mean, you know, in the camera, so I want it to be a little more dynamic. And as I'm designing, I am going to be duplicating and moving some trees around to get more of an organic forest. But this will look relatively man-made, as these are just the way they look. But you can do whatever tree, whatever design you want. So here is what I have so far. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my camera here, the outliner, and hit H to hide it. Because now what I'm going to do is hit B, box select everything, hit M, new collection, and call it trees. and we're going to be collection instancing this. So instead of using an array modifier, we're going to use a better method of duplicating things in a long string for looping animations is collection instance. So you'll hit Shift A, collection instance, trees. Now hold down Control so it snaps to grid and snap that right there. So we'll just do just like that on these. I messed up on this one, so we'll go back. And then what I want to do is get another collection instance on the trees and then bring it this way, just like that. And then I'm going to duplicate these two guys, bring them this direction, and then do that again. And we pretty much have our tiled forest, but when we get actually into the view, you won't be able to tell that it's tiled in that way. So right over here, I'm going to give myself 120 frames. In my camera, I'm going to click the little green camera icon and give myself a fairly wide focal length, and then I'm going to hit G and then bring it down. I'm going to hit R twice to sort of point him up, just like that. And then now we're going to animate him going in through the forest to loop it. So right here in Edit, Preferences, make sure that in the animations that your default interpolation is at linear. So now right here I'm going to go back to frame 0. That's super important for you to do that. Start at frame 0, click -8, click the keyframe for it, and then go to +8 because we're going to the very edge of our 8x8 square. Go into the edge, and then now we have a seamless loop going through this thing. Now at the end you'll be able to see that some disappear, but you won't be able to see that once we add in our volume and all our stylistic fun. Now, here on this plane, I'm going to hit Tab, right-click, Subdivide. I'm going to give it 50 subdivisions, and then I'm going to give it a displacement modifier. So let's go ahead and get that displacement, New, give my strength at 0.1 for now, and then I'm going to click this little icon to go to the textures, add a clouds, give the depth pretty low, and then the size something like this, and then I'm going to right-click, Shade Smooth, and then bring that strength up, something like this. And then now we have a nice animation to run our camera through. It's perfectly seamless. And let's start shading and lighting. That's the fun part. So we're going to be using some volume to really light this in our very stylistic way. So shading, Shift A, add a mesh, add a cube, hit S8, enter, Control A, apply that scale. I'm going to hit 0 to go back into the view. Hit the little camera icon, and we're going to go from cycles to Eevee if you're not already there. Turn on ambient occlusion here. Turn on bloom, screen space reflections, and motion blur. Now we're going to go over here to shading, and I'm going to just hit Z and go to the rendered view. So I'm going to hit new, making sure that that cube is selected. Delete the principled, add in a volume. So principled volume here. Get the volume here, plug it straight into the volume tab. On our world brightness, bring that down to 0. And then right up here, I'm going to delete these gizmos because they're causing this gray mass. It looks like something is not there. So I'm going to delete those. Just hide them. I'm going to get my density at 0.1 and my emission strength at 0.1 as well. So now we have our beautiful fog. This is the part where you add whatever color you like. For me, I found the pink to be the greatest, or the nicest looking one for me. I really enjoyed seeing that. And then now what we're going to do, I'm going to hit Shift A and add in a plane, S8, just like that. We have a new plane here, and then I'm going to just bring it down a little bit. Don't want it to overtake our little hills. And then go back to shading. I'm going to click New, and now we're going to shade this new plane, bring up the transmission, bring down the roughness. Let's get a bump node, because we're going to make some little water ripples now. So bump node, noise texture, just like this. Plug the factor into the height, and then you'll need the Node Wrangler add-on. So edit preferences, go to add-ons here, type in node. Turn on the Node Wrangler add-on, because now we're going to click on the noise, Control T, plug the object into the mapping node, and then bring that strength down a little bit, bring that detail up a little bit so it's nice ripples in the water. Then bring up the scale just a little bit too. And so now we have some nice water. I'm going to bring up my timeline just so I can use it within the shading workspace. And then we can run our camera through our nice little forest. And then I messed one thing up. You can see it stops. So we can see how our cube is only in this thing right here. So it's only in this one thing. So hit M, click trees, and it's going to add everything to the trees. And now you just see this big box. I want to remove the fact that it's sort of overtaking everything. So click on the little yellow box, which is the transform. Go to viewport display, from textured to wire, and then now he's sort of invisible, so we can see everything that's going on, which is really nice. So we can go back and we can press play on everything here, and we can go through our nice little forest, and everything looks nice and cool. All right, now let's add some style. First off, click on the camera icon, go to color management, and make sure you're in filmic, and I like to be at very high contrast, and to even add even more contrast, because I'm a big fan of contrast, bring your gamma down, and that will even make it look even more contrast. You get those really nice blacks, even though we're not getting full black. So now we're flying through our scene really nice, and let's go ahead and add some style to this. This is something you see on Instagram all the time. It's a very popular style to do within motion graphics and abstract art, which is adding this plane, RX90, to rotate him. I'm going to bring him up a little bit toward my camera. So I'm going to bring him like that, scale it down, and then I'm going to use the scale tool, scale it up something like this, bring it up. He will be intersecting with trees, but that's okay. And then we're going to add in, first off, Control A, apply the scale so that our wireframe modifier maps correctly. We'll add the wireframe just like that. I'm going to click boundary to give it that other boundary there. And then bring the thickness down a little bit. I'm going to go back to rendered view, add in an emission material just like that. Make it nice and blue. And then bring up that strength. And then I think I'm going to have to make him a nice deep blue to counteract all this craziness going on around us. So now we have that. I'm going to click on the plane, hold down Control, click on the camera, Control P, object. What that's going to do is parent the object to the camera so that it stays in the same position as he's slicing through all our trees and all our fun stuff, just like that. And it looks really cool, and everyone's going to like it. So let's go on and add in a little bit of roughness to this plane here on the ground. So let's go back to shading here, click new, and then we'll add in a bump node here. So we want this ground to be not so perfectly smooth, so we're going to add in another noise texture here. I'm going to hit Control T, use the object coordinate, plug the factor into the height, and then bring our distance down just like this, bring up that detail, and then bring up that scale. So now we have a little bit of roughness, a little bit of bumpiness going on the ground, just to add in a little bit of detail on this ground, which is fairly necessary. And then again, we're not even going to shade these trees. We're not going to do anything to that because it's not entirely that necessary for all these trees, because they're just silhouettes, just reflecting a little bit, and it's there by default. Cuts out a lot of the work for you. Next thing we're going to do is the last thing is adding some particles that glow up and we fly through. So I'm going to hit Shift A, make our particle. We're going to use an icosphere, and then I'm going to give my subdivisions at I'm going to give it subdivisions of 3. I'm going to hit G to move him over here. And then there he is. I'm going to shade smooth by hitting right-clicking here. And then we have our particle. Let's go ahead and add in the same emission material that we added to the little plane over there. So same little emission material. I'm going to click on the plane, and then let's add a particle system. So clicking on this for particle system plus hair. Right here on render, we're going to use from path to object, and on instance object, what I want to do is click this little eyedropper. I'm going to find the particle, eyedropper, select him. Now we have all these. Bring your scale randomness pretty low, and then our actual scale pretty low too. I'm going to give it at 0.05. Sorry, 0.005. Makes them pretty small. That's what I want. But if you can see, they're all on the ground and I want them higher. How do we do that? The way to do that is you click your particle, hit tab, and then we'll click on this little move tool. And then if you bring that, what it does is it's moving the anchor point and it raises those particles up just like we're looking for. And if we look at the render view now, we are flying through some nice particles, and you can always bring them farther down, farther up, really whatever you want. What I'm going to do just to perfect some stuff and make it look better, I'm going to click on the cube, go back to shading, make it a little more vibrant on the pink, thus making it a little bit darker so everything's a little bit brighter. And then you can go and play with that, do anything that you'd like. But for me, this piece is finished. It's nice, it's simple, it looks great. It's a great motion graphics background for concerts, anything you want for your client or for your own personal work. And it's fun, and you can do all kinds of stuff with this workflow. So to export it, we'll go back here to this printer icon, do whatever resolution you want. I'm going to keep it at 1920 by 1080. Right here on PNG, go to FFmpeg video, or keep it at PNG if you want to do a image sequence. On encoding, change that to MP4, and then on medium quality, go to perceptually lossless, select where you want to save it, go to render and render animation, and when you're done, you'll have a really nice, beautiful animation in Eevee. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you learned something.